make sure to lock in for another Power Hour podcast because I'm going to be speaking to the professor of the Blood on the Clocktower game. And we're going to talk about all things Dreamcast and Sega. Strap in for a exciting hour, or courtesy of the
Streamcast.
Woo! What's going on, everyone? My name.
That is badass. I was not expecting that.
Thank you very much. My name is Blackamura, and I'm joined by Big Daddy Ben Burns. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm very good. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I mean, we usually see you as a talking head, filling us with dread on the very popular Blood on the Clocktower party game, whether it's online or in person. But today's a different kind of angle, and we've had you on the podcast before, Isaac and I. We've been so privileged, and I noticed that you were big on the Sega consoles, or big on the Dreamcast, and I was like, this guy's speaking my language. One way or another, I need to get him back on the pod. But I love Blood on the Clocktower, but we need to talk about Sega. We need to talk about how good the Dreamcast was and how kids these days just don't understand what a great console that was. So I'm very happy that you've graced us with your presence. Yeah, you've been doing hella big things since we last spoke. But for anyone who might be living under a rock, would you like to let them know a little bit of who you are, what you do?
Yeah, so I'm the community manager for a supernatural murder mystery social deduction game called Blood on the Clocktower, which seems to just continually get more popular every 10 minutes. I keep thinking the bubble's going to burst. It never does. But what that translates to is I run the Twitch channel, I run the YouTube channel, and I guest on various other channels that are more popular than mine. Because the game requires a kind of experienced referee of sorts to run it, and that's often the role I take. So I've appeared on Rob Has a Podcast and Neryl's Bard and a whole bunch of other much more entertaining channels than mine to run the game, and I go to conventions and stuff like that. So if folks are into Blood on the Clocktower, they generally know who I am. Which is very nice, of course, and yeah, that's basically me. But I am also a human being with lots of other hobbies. By lots of other hobbies, I mean adjacent hobbies that are all gaming.
Lots of other hobbies, and there'll be time either in the middle or the end for you to plug a lot of the stuff that you're doing over at the Pandemonium Institute, including any upcoming conventions. But I want to see how the link goes from you and Sega. So, how does your Sega video game journey begin?
Well, I grew up poor as shit. Am I allowed to swear on this Streamcast?
Yes, that wasn't
it's
clear
a bit late.
beforehand.
The cat's out of the bag now.
Sorry, executive decision.
My apologies. I grew up poor as poop, which is often portrayed as a bad thing, and it is in some ways. But I think there's a level of, there are certain things that you have access to as a poor person that you don't have access to as a rich person, which is crazy to say. But one of those things is you don't get anything when it's new. So I was quite fortunate as a child to just have everything like 8 to 10 years after it was new. And so I had basically every console, but I just had it way after all my mates had it. So I started off on, I think I was born in 1988, so in December 88. So the Mega Drive was already out when I was born. But it was in the early 90s, I got an Atari XEGS from a car boot sale, which at the time was like 10, 15 years old. And I played like Donkey Kong and Space Invaders and all those classic Atari things when all my mates were playing Mega Drive. And then in the mid 90s, I finally got a Mega Drive. But by that point, I'd also had like a secondhand Master System and like a secondhand Game Boy and all kinds of just like old knackered secondhand consoles. So I was quite fortunate to just almost, I think a lot of people when they talk about their journey as a gamer, it's a series of moments where they get a brand new console that's current and then experience the library as it kind of comes out over the course of that console's lifespan. But for me, it was just a series of Like, I'm sat eating dinner and my uncle walks through the door and says, "Ben, look what I got from the charity shop." And I'm like, "What is that, Dave?" And he'll be like, "Oh, it's called a Master System." "Oh, great. And you don't even have to put a cartridge in it. It's got one loaded in. It's called Alex the Kid." "Oh, that's amazing. Brilliant." And then he dumps like 30 cartridges on the table as well, which he got for like 20p each. From the same charity shop. So that's my journey as a Sega fan runs concurrent almost to my journey as a fan of like Atari and a bunch of other things. But it's just, for me, Sega really kind of stood out because, like many kids of the 90s, I stood watching other kids play in arcades at the seaside and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, these games that I saw them playing are on this console that I've got. And so for me, it was just, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Virtua Fighter, Virtua Striker, House of the Dead, all these kind of games that over the course of the 90s I saw getting chucked into arcades. I then, some years down the line was able to play them on consoles. And so, yeah, sorry, that's a really kind of roundabout answer to the question. But, that was my journey as a Sega fan, just having it kind of dumped in front of me on a dinner table at some point in the mid-90s.
No, that's perfectly fine. I love that answer. You provided a lot of context, and I do think there's a lot of I don't know if this is a saying, but like I do think like the lack of, I guess, luxury or the lack of option does yield creativity. So, for example, it showed itself in you getting a console that wasn't the brand new one in the market, but you were still able to engage in a completely interactive form of entertainment. And that's something similar to what my brother and I experienced growing up, where we got the Dreamcast as our first gaming console, and then for some reason we got a PlayStation 1 as a hand-me-down, and then that really launched off us as being gamers for life. So it's a very similar, I would say parallel experience with the Dreamcast and Virtua Fighter 3, I want to say, as our first game. And then that instantly hooked us because it reminded me of an anime called Dragon Ball Z. So we just kept playing, we kept fighting each other, and we couldn't understand any of the characters because they were speaking in their native tongues. And then that then transformed into Sonic Adventure, which just captured my imagination because this brightly blue colored thing, which wasn't a human but was cool and wisecracking and was fast, was on the screen. And I was like, I don't know what this guy is, but I want to play this game. I want to finish this game. And that then yielded into other fun games like Crazy Taxi and Ready to Rumble. So I think with a lot of those games I've seen now in arcades, such as Loading Bar and what's the other one, NQ64, that we've seen in London, that's brought back a lot of those memories of playing those classic games. So I can definitely respect where you're coming from.
Yeah, that was Sega's thing, right? Back in the day, it was like, we're bringing the arcades into your home. That was for most of the 90s. That was the main selling point, and they've delivered on it almost entirely, right? I can think of very few console ports on Sega machines that weren't at least decent. And really, like, the only reason Sega died is, I think, to some degree, because they just couldn't get a Sonic game out on the Saturn, which is mind-blowing, really, like, when you think about it.
Ridiculous. What? Also, like, randomly, I've gone through all the first 4 Sonic games on the Sonic Origins game. So they've ported Sonic 1, 2, 3, and CD on the Switch. And even though those games are 30 years old, I've had so much fun with just playing a simple game. I could only imagine what it must have been like for kids growing up in that era, actively playing it on the classic Sega consoles. So yeah, like you said, a lot of those Sega games were hits. And something else that I felt like Sega did really well, which was covered in the next Netflix docuseries High Score, was Sega's more edgy advertising techniques, where Nintendo was kind of like the old guard, the powerhouse in the video gaming world. Sega kind of came through with the whole new radical point of view, like essentially Bart Simpson, right? With a lot of the edgier jokes and the advertising techniques, which definitely spoke to me as a rebellious young man. So I
Yeah.
definitely think a lot of those stuff stood out to me, and I was rooting for Sega. It felt like that was the people's console in a way.
Yeah, I think there's like a series of things about Sega that just they were ahead of their time to their detriment, right? Like when certainly when this is more true in America than in the UK and Europe because Sega was the dominant force in Europe throughout the 90s. I didn't know anybody who owned a Super Nintendo except for like the one rich kid in my class. Like everybody else in my class had a Mega Drive. And then when PlayStation came out, everyone in my class had a PlayStation or a Saturn. Like there was again, it was just the rich kids that owned Nintendos because those cartridges were obscenely expensive when they first came out. But yeah, I think certainly in America, they tried to position themselves as the console for teens, right? Whereas Super Nintendo was advertising, all these cute characters and graphics and stuff. And then the Sega Genesis commercials were like, you don't want to be a little kid, do you? You want to play the Sega, Sega, and all that kind of stuff. And then as we got to like the Saturn era, they're trying to do more avant-garde stuff with those like weird commercials where it's just like a bald woman with a load of planets sellotaped to her head or whatever. And this really bizarre. And again, like they foresaw that if you go forward to the PlayStation 2 era, that's what everybody was doing. They were all trying to market their games to like older, like horny teenage boys, right? And even the gaming magazines were just full of like, in between all the crazy frog ringtone advertisements and stuff, there was, just loads of gross, smelly boy stuff about like, send us a picture of your girlfriend's tits and we'll put it in the magazine or whatever. Like, but they were ahead of their time. In realizing that's where things were going. The Dreamcast is the same as well. Like online play, MMO, and MMO on a console, right? In like the late 90s. Like the world was just not ready for it. Most people's internet dial-up service was not ready for it. It's kind of sad, really. And I think that like Sega walked so that everybody else could run. And it almost kind of annoys me when people dunk on the Saturn and on the Dreamcast and stuff like that these days, because it's like, are you gonna? Yeah, okay. There are many modern guitarists that would wipe the floor with Jimi Hendrix, but that doesn't mean that Jimi Hendrix's music and guitar playing is bad. In fact, it means that it's better because the greats came before. We're standing on the shoulders of giants here, right? And I kind of feel that way about Sega. I think most Sega fans will be nodding in appreciation with what I'm saying now, and that like you have to, if you're a fan of gaming, you have to appreciate Sega in the same way that if you're a fan of music, you really kind of have to have some respect for Hendrix and the Beatles and all that kind of stuff, even if it's not your cup of tea.
Yes, 100%. I think it's one of those things like if you translate it to football, Pele and Maradona, even though a lot of us wouldn't have seen them live, that's one of those things where you have to appreciate just how good they were, because they are the template for the Messis and the Sergio Busquets and all of the guys who were great 10, 20 years ago. I definitely agree with that. I think what you said about the Dreamcast or Sega in general being ahead of its time in a bad way or to its own detriment is very true. I think if the world isn't ready for it, it is going to be viewed as a bad thing, even though online play now is just the norm. But in the 90s was so radical and ahead of its time. There's no way that the populace would have taken to it, just because we were still struggling on dial-up internet. There's no way like the common person could have handled that. But yeah, it does. I do agree with your point of I think if you're a true gamer, you don't just shit on Dreamcast and Sega, because you kind of appreciate what they brought to the table. It's one of those things where maybe PlayStation and Nintendo and Xbox have done it better since, but those ideas do come from Sega and Dreamcast taking a risk back in the day. So it does kind of remind me of the I think it's an E3 where you have the PlayStation 2, the Xbox, I think GameCube and the Dreamcast all like stood in a row, and the four nations were once in perfect harmony, like the Avatar. That's when gaming peaked. My boomer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right. Like, there's no two ways about it. Like, choice is good for the community, right? I think if it's you see this with most things, like not to get too sidetracked, but like politics is a good example of this, right? Countries that have a two-party system, like the USA, eventually just become a choice between far right or center right, right? There's no left wing option, or you could say the same thing. I'm not just going to poop on the conservatives. The same thing can be said in countries like Cuba or whatever, where all of the options are left wing and there's no conservative option. And I think we're kind of living in the video game equivalent of the USA or Cuba here, where everyone's realized that this is where the money is, and so everything's just become homogenized. But if you go back to like 1999, 2000, you've still got like major studios taking a risk on something like Choo Choo Rocket or something like that. Like nobody would make that in 2025. No, equally though, you've got Sony pumping money into games like Haunting Ground on the PS2. Like, remember how many? I think it was Jim Sterling or Stephanie Sterling, as she now goes by, made a point that like that era of games had these mid-budget titles that were backed by major studios that just don't exist anymore. Games that aren't, where they're not pumping like tens of millions of dollars into them, they're just dropping like 5 or 6 mil at the time and producing these games that were experimental but still had like a high quality sheen to them because they were funded with the idea that, hey, if like they might make their money back, they might make a little profit, they might lose some money, but we've learned something from it. And I think kind of in the era where all consoles are basically the same thing and all games have homogenized, we've lost that sense of kind of exploration and adventuring spirit in the industry. Although we do have the indie community that's flying that flag, right?
Very, very true. I think I really recognized it around the pandemic era, where all of a sudden all of the major companies wanted to get involved in gaming, and it was just clear that they didn't get it, but they just saw, oh, there's revenue, there's money in here, it's a certified winner. And I think I can't even remember who said it, but it goes back to a comment basically that says there are fewer weirdos making games because shareholders are just ruining the industry. So you get a lot less of these experimental and wild video game ideas, which, yeah, not every one of them is a hit, but at least they're fun. Like, your Crazy Taxis or your Raymans. And now you are seeing a bit of a renaissance thanks to the indie community. Like, what's this game that my colleague talks about? Squirrel with a Gun, for example, is just insane.
Okay, I gotta look this up. Hang on. Squirrel with a Gun. Oh, hey, 60% off on Steam. Get it now, viewers.
Let's go.
As the neighborhood's most obnoxious rodent, develop a knack and a love for crime and mayhem. Okay.
Apparently, it's a hard game. I have no idea. I have to take their word for it. It's crazy. That's the kind of stuff that I really like, even though that's not my traditional cup of tea. Like stuff like Goat Simulator and just wild, wacky games. Like we need more of those.
Yeah,
so
we definitely do. I think we've seen as well, like it's a real shame, the death of like hero studios of our childhood. Like, I'm particularly saddened at like what became of Blizzard. Like, Blizzard is if people ask me what I think is the greatest video game of all time, not my favorite, but the greatest, my answer is always World of Warcraft, because it completely changed the way we view video gaming as a medium. It was one of the first games that took something that's really, really hardcore nerdy and like forced it into the public consciousness and the cultural zeitgeist, with like even shows like South Park parodying it and acknowledging its existence. But it did more than that. It told people that there is loads of money to be made in having lots of people get online and play together, and it allowed studios to splash big budgets on games of that kind. It ushered in an age of subscription gaming, which, whether you like it or not, is kind of a necessity for an MMO. Just all of these huge changes, but even prior to that, Blizzard were breaking insane ground with games like Diablo and learning lessons that again have far-reaching consequences. Like, they figured out very quickly that like slapping something until it dies and then picking up everything it drops is a really, really exciting gameplay loop. And so it kind of, and even like, 8 years ago or whatever, they're dropping Overwatch, completely changing how we play first-person shooters all of a sudden, and reinventing esports as a concept to some degree. So it really, and Blizzard's just an example of one of many studios that had a good 20, 30 years of being consistently innovative and brilliant, and then just got bought out by some entity that doesn't give a flying fuck about video games, gutted all of the people that cared about Blizzard left, and now it's just this kind of weird, evil entity just puppeting the corpse of Blizzard as its skin slowly rots. It's really like, it's just depressing. Sorry, no one's going to stick around to listen to this Dreamcast. Is just me whinging about it.
I actually think people are going to agree with you. The way you were saying Sega heads are nodding with you, I do think Blizzard heads are also going to agree with you, because again, it's just business at the end of the day, but it's like a hollowed husk of what it used to be. And I think sometimes negativity needs to be shared.
Yeah. So in conclusion, gaming's dead. Find another hobby. Hair cross stitching is quite easy to get into.
There's this really good game called Blood on the Clocktower. I think everyone would enjoy it. Pick it up. So you admittedly say that you picked up the Dreamcast quite late in its life, but you still, I would still class you as a Dreamcast boy. So when it comes to the Dreamcast, what are some of your favorite memories with that game? And could you list a top 5 Dreamcast games?
Yeah, I got a Dreamcast for, I think it was my 22nd or 23rd birthday. I got some birthday money. My girlfriend had just kicked me out of our house, and I was super devastated, and I was living in my mate's living room. And but I had this money, and I went to this second-hand shop I'd moved back to my hometown, which sucks, right? You never want to have to move back to your hometown, if you don't want to. It feels like you're going backwards. But there was this crappy old kind of knockoff CAX there. We used to call it Honest John's, because the guy that ran it, John, was really not honest. It was an ironic nickname. But he had just like, I went in there thinking I'm going to treat myself to something, and he just had piles of Dreamcasts with a controller that he'd wrapped up with cellophane as a kind of half-arsed package that I think were like 40 quid or something like that. So I bought this old-ass yellow Dreamcast, which I still have. It's right next to me. I've got a controller and everything right here. But, and then I just bought a load of games for it because he was selling them for like a quid each. So yeah, that was when I got my first Dreamcast. And some of the games that I got with it are still my favorites to this day. I've picked up some more. So off the top of my head, top 5. That's really difficult. I think. Let me have a quick look at my collection. Okay.
Look at that flex right there. Let me check out my collection real quick.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. In top 5. Number 5, Shadow Man. It's a great game. The best version of it is on Dreamcast by a mile. I mean, there's now that remade version of it, which is probably the best version of it now, like the HD remaster. But for years and years and years, by a mile, the best version of that game was on Dreamcast. And it's really cool. It's got a really mature themes, and also is set in this genre that I love. I don't know what the name of this genre is, but it's our world, but all the things that are fables in our world exists. kind of
Okay.
genre. I guess like is urban fantasy, but that doesn't really
Yeah.
feel right because urban fantasy feels light and fluffy, whereas Shadow Man's like grim and dark, right? But TV shows like Supernatural and stuff like that kind of exist
Okay.
in that genre.
Yeah.
But I adore that genre, and I feel like there's not enough in it. But yeah, great game, great voice acting, disgusting enemy character models. Love everything about it. Okay, hang on. Just keep turning around. Oh, how could I leave this one out? This has got to be at number 4. Jet Set Radio. What a game!
Oh.
Such a cool game. My first encounter with Jet Set Radio was the first ever console that I actually bought when it was new, and I got it on release day. I saved up my pocket money for like 2 years. The original Xbox. And if memory serves, Jet Set Radio Future was a launch title in the UK for that console, which was essentially a remake of Jet Set Radio. And yeah, I played that on the original Xbox, and then many years later played it on the Dreamcast. But that game was dope. Like, the music on it is sick. Just the sliding around on your skates, pulling tricks and annoying the cops is just so much fun. And I think actually Jet Set Radio kind of typifies the Dreamcast in such a great way, because it's the Dreamcast has so many games that are somehow simultaneously edgy but like cutesy as well, and Jet Set Radio is kind of that, right? Like it's about tagging, and it's about civil disobedience, and it's like full of like trip hop and stuff, but also you're like riding around in cute little gangs of guys on rollerblades having a gay old time. Like, it's probably one of the many reasons why the Dreamcast didn't work, because it just couldn't pick a lane. But yeah, Jet Set Radio, what a game. My top 3, I know what these are, and it's really hard for me to order them, but I think I feel like I'm doing it dirty by putting this in number 3. But Skies of Arcadia has got to be at number 3. Just one of the best JRPGs ever made. Had a really clever use of the UMD, where you could you get like little pets in game, you could take them with you and like dick around with them on the UMD, which is, I imagine, was a lot of fun on a bus in 1998, but by the time I'd reached my 20s, I wasn't so keen. But it's, yeah, great soundtrack, great mechanics. Sky Pirates is always a cool theme, and it gives me that feeling of warm fuzziness when I think about it, which I can't really explain, but I feel like is the hallmark of a good JRPG. Like, you spend all this time with these characters exploring this ginormous world, and then when you think back on it, you just think, oh man, I wish I could experience that again for the first time, because it was so compelling. But yeah, that's my number 3. At number 2, I feel like I'm doing this one dirty as well. It deserves to be at number 1, but I'd be lying if I put it there. It's Shenmue. Shenmue is just, for people who haven't played Shenmue, I can't really explain it to you. You'll just have to play it. But Shenmue is one of those games where you kind of get a brief glimpse into what modern video games are like in an alternate reality, right? There's an alternate reality out there where the Dreamcast knocked it out of the park. It became the dominant console by a country mile, and modern RPGs are like Shenmue. It's such a weird game. Like, everything happens in real time. You can miss vast swathes of the plot if you're not in the right place at the right time. There's just this really complex storyline going on with different characters all having their own agendas, and you can play Space Harrier in an arcade, and there's a bit where you have to move around boxes because you get a job as a warehouse guy, and it's just truly just not like anything else I've ever played before or since. And I wouldn't even say it's not like a 10 out of 10 experience from start to finish, but it's a bit like playing Shenmue is a bit like being in a relationship with someone that you don't always agree with. There are moments when it's awful and you're not having a good time, but ultimately the entire experience is one of personal growth as a gamer, in much the same way that every ex-girlfriend you've had is your personal growth as a lover, I suppose. Well, that was a weirdly deep metaphor, but it's kind of hard to explain why Shenmue's good to kids today, because if they go and play it, they're going to be like, "This is shit. I'm just driving around in a forklift." It's like, no, it was so good in the 90s. I promise.
No, don't second guess your analogies. They are amazing.
And here we go, the number one game, which I think is going to be a disappointing one, but I just love it. Crazy Taxi. It's so much fun. Yeah, I could play Crazy Taxi anytime. Like there is never a moment in my life when you couldn't tap me on the shoulder and go, "Do you fancy a game of Crazy Taxi?" And I would not say, "Hell yeah, I want to play Crazy Taxi." It's just so infinitely replayable, and I feel like every time I play it, I spot something new, which is crazy because it's just a fucking arcade driving game. Like it's really not that deep. Like the two games that came before it are these like extremely revered, almost religiously adored, complex RPG experiences that take dozens and dozens of hours to complete. And Crazy Taxi is just like, hey, let's drive some fucking cars. But it's just so good. It's so much fun.
Oh my god, you set me up with the bait and switch there when you were like, "Oh, the number one's going to be so disappointing." It's like, what's he going for there? It's a Crazy Taxi. That is objectively the correct answer.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I feel like when you're making a list of like when you've just talked up how revolutionary the console was, you're supposed to say something like, Seaman, where you get psychologically investigated by a fish with a man's face. Some like pretentious bullshit like that. Which, don't get me wrong, Seaman's an amazing game. I don't own it because it costs a bajillion quid. But yeah, no, Crazy Taxi, just simple arcade gameplay. Love it.
Honestly, I do think something that's kind of missing in video games nowadays is the fun factor. It's sometimes things don't need to make sense. Sometimes they just need to be fun. And that is all it needs to be sometimes. And Crazy Taxi is definitely, I think, is one of the most fun games of all time. Whenever I go to an arcade, that is the machine I look out for. And sometimes it's not the one I go to first, but it's the one I've got my eye on, and I'm like, you know what? I know I'm coming to you at some point this night. I'm coming to you, and
yeah, it is. It's very of its era, right? It's like you could not get away with releasing Crazy Taxi if Crazy Taxi never existed, and some major studio like Activision said, "There's a AAA title we're putting out. You drive a car for 3 minutes, 70 quid." Like you just would not get away with it at all. But there was a time where we didn't care about the length of games. In fact, there was a time where if a game took too long to finish, that could have been considered an issue, right? And there was a time when we just wanted that arcade experience at home, and Crazy Taxi gave it. Where you just passing the controller around as the spliff goes in the opposite direction, just taking turns or whatever. Just don't get that anymore.
100%, and I actually do think what you said, bringing that arcade feeling to home games, to your TV screen, is the perfect way to describe not only Crazy Taxi, but I think Sega consoles and Sega games in general. It's a weird niche feeling to capture, but I do think they capture that really, really well. So that's a very strong top 5.
Thanks. Yeah, not bad for a guy who never owned it when it was out.
I definitely think you're part of the Dreamcast community. Who goes? Let me tell you what my favorite Dreamcast games are. Hold on, let me just check my collection right now. I think you're a guy after my own heart, because I'm actually collecting a lot of retro consoles and games right now as well. So I've got a Dreamcast and a PS2, and I've got some of the games that made my childhood. And Sonic Adventure 2 is not in that collection because for some reason they think that game is worth like £70 upwards. I don't think it is. We're in a massive disagreement.
Yeah, we are. It kind of sucks being a retro collector now, because a bit like with Pokemon cards, people who don't really care about playing games have realized the value of them. And you just can't you can't get a bargain anymore. Like it used to be that you could walk into a charity shop. I picked up a sealed copy of Final Fantasy VII in a charity shop 15 years ago for like £1. but you're just never gonna get that ever again anymore.
Never.
So yeah, it does kind of suck. But yeah, I think I don't know about you, but for me, while I do have a collection, it's not because I purchase things to put them on my shelf. It was just a journey. Like I kind of went on this journey of I'm going to get the games that I wanted when I was a kid, but just couldn't get for whatever reason because I couldn't afford them or because they didn't become available to me. And just kind of have just been doing that now for like 10 or 15 years, just ever so slowly. But there's nothing here that I have that I'm not interested in playing. That's kind of my policy. I don't just buy things just to have them. I only buy things if I want to actually experience them. But that's almost a never-ending journey because there's like, especially that era, that Sega Saturn / Dreamcast era, there is an infinite number of weird crap that came out in that time. Like we've talked about, you mentioned the four nations of Sega, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, right? But there's other stuff, like there's the Atari Jaguar. I've got an Atari Jaguar here because as a kid, I would occasionally see it in the shop and think, Jaguars are cool. I want one of those. And eventually bought one. And do you know what? I love it. It's one of my favorite consoles. Not because it's good or because the games on it are good, but because when I'm sat playing it, I'm thinking, I'm probably the only person in a 15-mile radius of me that has had this experience. Like kind of a collector of rare experiences. I've got an Amiga CD32, which is Amiga's attempt to break into the console market. It was the first 32-bit CD-based system in Europe, and it's not good, but it's incredible. Like it's incredible that I even get to. I just love booting it up and booting up a game and playing some like cannon fodder or something on it because it's just such I feel privileged to be able to have these experiences because I'm moving gaming circles and I know so many gamers that haven't experienced these things. Sorry, that's making me sound like such a cocky bastard, isn't it?
No, I actually think it's true because gaming has changed so vastly, so much over not a long time. Over the last 2-3 decades, gaming has transformed in so many ways. It is pretty much unrecognizable from its genesis, from its starting, its humble beginnings. As like you said with the Atari Jaguar and like the Commodore and a lot of old consoles like that. I do think the uniqueness of holding retro consoles does come with its own badge of honor, but not in a cocky way. I just think it's I don't know how to compare it. I guess it's like if you have a relative and they have like a really old watch and you show your friends and it's like, look at this really cool watch, and it's not like really expensive or anything, but the sentimental value is very high. I like to compare it to something like that, which is why I started collecting the old games. Not just because I do find a lot of modern games boring, but I also have like a really strong point of resonance with the PS2, with its very strong game library, with the Dreamcast, with its unique games that not all of them hit, but they were fun and they speak to me. So I am similar in that regard. I don't really want to collect games just because I think they'll be expensive in a few years or so, but I do want to collect stuff that means a lot to me. And there is an aspect of I do actually want to play games that I didn't have the chance to play because when I'm 7 or 8, I don't really understand or care for a lot of other IPs. So a lot of your lists on the top 5, I'm actually going to take a mental note. I'm going to take Shadow Man, Skies of Arcadia. I have another guest who sings that game's praises so much. Mr.
It's very good, yeah. It's kind of terrible of me to say, but arguably not arguably, it's just a fact. The better version of it is on the GameCube. They re-released it and like did some bug fixes and touched a few things up, and yeah. If you're going to experience it for the first time, you might as well experience it on the GameCube. But I own it on the Dreamcast, and yeah, well, it'll be good on either. Yeah, Sky's great. But yeah, no, I resonate a lot with what you just said there because I think while you were saying it, I kind of thought, do you know what? I think ultimately what it is for a lot of us is the only way forward is to go backwards into the past. Like the the frontiers that we have not yet experienced are in the past. Like, I know what the future holds. I can tell you what Activision's going to release. It's going to be 15 open world games where you climb up a tower to unlock the map. I can tell you what EA's going to do. They're going to release the next year of sports simulation games, and they're going to kill a couple of studios that I loved as a child. Like that, like we know. Like, it sounds really sad, but we know what's coming. It's predictable because we know where the money is. Whereas, like, I just picked this up. Towers 2, Plight of the Stargazer for the Atari Jaguar. Do you know what that's going to be like? I don't. Nope. I haven't got a clue. This could be anything. Like, there's just a few screenshots on the back and an explanation about some guy's tower. Like this, to me, this is the only way that I can have that excitement of, like, new discoveries, because we live in an era where even if something is a bit weird and innovative, there's a bajillion videos about it on YouTube the moment it comes out. You almost can't avoid learning lots and lots of stuff about a game. Whereas anyone of our age, of our era, will remember going into a shop and it's like, you pick up the game, you don't know anything about it. You think, oh, it's got a tower. It's got like a dark tower, and there's a guy walking into it with a torch. That's awesome. I vibe with this. I'm going to buy it. And the only way to have those experiences is to look into the past, right? And get those obscure, weird things that you didn't get, that there is no information about, I guess.
Absolutely. I think the closest thing that we do have is the indie scene, but even that doesn't really compare to, like, just the wildness of playing an old game from the 90s, just because I don't want to say they didn't know any better, but they couldn't have, because, you know, in the 90s that was present, that was, you know, cutting edge technology. So, like, with the Shenmue example that you gave, I 100% believe if you give a 10-year-old Shenmue, they play it for like 5 minutes, so like, I don't get it. This isn't groundbreaking. Let me go play FIFA 29. You know, so it's like, everything's relative, and I think because we are, I do think we're quite fortunate to have grown through an era where technology was very limited, you know, while growing up. Dial-up internet, for example. I don't know why at work today we're talking about the old phones where you had to, like, do that.
Oh, the rotary dials, yeah.
Like, these kids don't know what a cassette tape is. There's no way that...
Yeah, we straddled analog and digital, right? That's what it is. Yeah. We are the generation that grew up with tape decks and physical buttons on things, and then when we popped out into adulthood, there was iPads and you know, MP3s. Like, it's kind of crazy but it's great that we got the best of both worlds. We got to appreciate both of those things.
100%. I think that is, yeah, quite simply the best way to put it. Best of both worlds. I'm curious if you are willing to play a particular game with me.
Sure, I'm always up for that.
Sorry, that's very ominous.
Yeah. What is your debit card number? Sort code.
16 digits. Did you see what I just did? So we're gonna play one of these games where you have a particular budget, and you know, you have certain games that cost a certain amount. I can't take credit for this. This is from console_HQ on Instagram. I'm straight up stealing their shit. You have $23 to buy a collection of Dreamcast games. Here is your list of games. How are you spending your $23 for people who are going to be listening to this on audio platforms after the fact? It says build your collection, Dreamcast, budget $23, and in the $5 tier you have Shenmue, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure 2, Soul Calibur, and Skies of Arcadia. $4 tier you have Shenmue 2, Resident Evil, Code Veronica, Jet Set Radio, Sonic Adventure 1, and I can't even... Is that Pocket Stone 2?
Power Stone 2.
Power Stone 2. Oh my god, I can't read. On the $3 tier, The House of the Dead, Virtua Tennis. Oh, The House of the Dead 2, I should specify. Virtua Tennis, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Res, and Fantasy Star Online. Oh my god, the text on some of these. There's $2 here. Echo the Dolphin. Not reading that subtext. NBA. Is that 2K2?
NBA 2K2, yeah.
Space Channel 5, Blue Stinger,
Hydro Thunder.
There we go.
Do you want me to see this one out? And at the $1 tier, we've got Urban Chaos, Nightmare Creatures 2, Seaman, Kiss Psycho Circus, and WF Royal Rumble.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I can read, promise.
Well, this is quite interesting. I mean, my immediate response is I'll buy Seaman, sell it for $100, and buy everything else. But
in a world where that's not possible.
If I buy Seaman, do I? So presumably the rule here is I don't own any of these and I've not played them before. I just kind of have my knowledge now, but I'm gonna which ones I think will give me the most fun collection. If I buy Seaman, do I have that? Do I already have the headset and microphone? Because you kind of need it to play that game, don't you?
Let's assume no.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll leave Seaman out. Yeah. So let's see, what have we got? I mean, the $5 tier contains, all of those games are quality games, but I'd probably not bother with Sonic Adventure 2 and this is like sacrilege, but I actually don't care that much for Sonic. Like, I played the early Sonic games on Mega Drive, and I enjoyed them, but the games that I always I just not that bothered about let's run really fast. Like, the kind of stuff that I always enjoyed was or at least what my young brain saw as like tactical stuff. So things like Golden Axe and Streets of Rage, where you've got to think about your moves, you've got to know how you're going to engage your opponent. At the time seemed like really deep tactical fist fighting combat experiences, whereas Sonic was just like run to the right as fast as possible, which I didn't find that compelling. So I'm gonna have to get Shenmue, Crazy Taxi, and Skies of Arcadia. Like, they're just deal breakers. So I've already spent $15. Do you know what? I'm gonna get Virtua Tennis. That is a really good arcade sports game. I really, really like Virtua Tennis. It's almost on Crazy Taxi level of like arcade fun for me. So that's $18 that I've already spent. Shit. Okay. I'm gonna get Kiss Psycho Circus. So most people look at that game and think it's a Kiss game. It's got to be terrible, but it's actually like I would encourage anyone who hasn't played it to go check it out, because it is a really, really weird first-person shooter set in a carnival where basically there's a bunch of gods that are all the 4 members of Kiss, and you play as their like avatar on Earth dealing with some sort of like weird theological crisis, and all the weapons in it. It's really good. All the weapons in it are these like bizarre like alien weaponry things, and honestly, like, it is. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's Half-Life or something, because it just isn't. But like, it's a game that you expect would be a 3 out of 10, and it's actually a solid like 7 out of 10. So for $1, it's just a bargain. So where are we at now? That's $19 I've spent. I've got $4 left. $4.
Ooh.
I'm gonna get Blue Stinger, because it's a pretty ridiculous game. I don't even think it's a good game, but the voice acting in it is so comically bad, and and the plot is so right. Here's a fun fact about Blue Stinger that most people might not know. In Japan, the developers of it in Japan spent loads, and I mean loads of money, consulting with filmography experts, because their inspiration for it was cinema. And so they had the game kind of old school Resident Evil style, from various cinematic camera angles, with a fixed camera angle that you ran around and experienced the game that way. And the game was 100% designed around that fixed camera angle. And then when they ported it to the West, the Western partners were like, nobody's going to want to do that. You need to remake it so that it's over the shoulder, and which completely like breaks the game at certain points. Literally, the opening moment of the game was supposed to be like a long shot where you see your main character at the opposite end of like a pier, and instead, because they forced over the shoulder, the game just starts with like his head taking up like 90% of the camera. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, there's a fun little fact about Blue Stinger for you. But yeah, I'd take that for $2, which means I've got $1 left or two. I think I've got two.
I think $2. Yeah.
Do you know what? I'm gonna pick up Seaman because I think it's an interesting game just to have. And then I've only got $1 left, so I'm gonna pick up Nightmare Creatures 2 because I'm a huge fan of horror, and so I just enjoy the theme for that. I'm pretty sad that I didn't get House of the Dead 2, but sacrifices had to be made.
That's quite a sick list, actually. I'm surprised you didn't go for Jet Set Radio.
Yeah, it was. I like Jet Set Radio a lot, but I think it was really a hard decision. But I think there was too much value at the bottom of that list. The $1 to $3 tier games contain I could get for the price of Jet Set Radio, I got Blue Stinger, Seaman, and Kiss Psycho Circus. Like that's 3 games. Like if you're a 13-year-old kid, you're on a budget, you got $23, you're probably not going to get any new games till Christmas. Like if you can get 3 instead of 1, that's just a no-brainer.
That's right. That's just simple maths. That's thank you for indulging me. This is very fun because I did.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. I don't know what my would be. Definitely Crazy Taxi.
You're gonna get Sonic Adventure, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Sonic Adventure 1. I had a guest on that swears that 1 is better than 2. I think we're the only 2 people who think that. Everyone else is like, no, you're wrong. Yeah, Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure, that's 9. I will go Marvel v Capcom 2. So I've got my fighting game. So that's 15.
Yeah, that is a good choice, to be fair. I kind of overlooked that.
Such a strong franchise. I hope they come up with 4 soon.
Yeah, there's a new Virtua Fighter coming out, right? They announced They did a trailer for that like 9 months ago or something. I'm really excited for that. I love Virtua Fighter.
Same. I'm such a big fan for that franchise.
It is my fighter of choice. Like I'd choose that over Tekken or Street Fighter or anything else.
Oh my goodness. We got to play sometime.
Yeah, let's do it. We'll play some Virtua Fighter 5.
Yeah, let's go.
I'll lay down some drunken kung fu on you.
Oh, I'm shit. I'm not even. I'm not even gonna try and lie to you. I'm terrible at the game. Crazy Taxi, Sonic Adventure, Marvel v Capcom 2. That's 15. I do want to play Shenmue. I've never played that game in my life. I have morbid curiosity because I've seen people play it, and even seeing people play it, I'm like, this game seems so janky. But
oh yeah.
But I actually think playing the game is going to be so much fun. I know you must know this better than me. There's like a room full of arcade machines, and you could just get lost playing video games in the video game. So I really want to try that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's an arcade in the same town. There's a gacha machine as well with little like gacha things in it. And honestly, like I spent the first time I played it, I spent so much time and money on those little gacha dolls. Like I was determined to collect all of them. Nowadays, that's just common, right? Every video game has. Or most modern sort of open world type experiences have 3 or 4 collectibles that you can indulge in. But at the time, I'd never, even when I picked it up like many years later, I'd never seen anything like that in a game. I was like, oh wow, this is so realistic. This is the kind of thing real people do. They collect shit.
Yeah, yeah. Some of them, mean something. Some of them just like to collect.
Yeah, they collect gachas and they go to the arcade and play Space Harrier, and then they beat up a guy in a park. It's just a normal day in the life of the protagonist of Shenmue.
Can't forget about beating up the guy in the park. Where am I at now? 20? Am I at 20? I think I am.
You are, I think, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's tough. So there's $3 left.
Yeah, you can get three $1, a $2 and a $1, or one $3. That's a difficult choice.
I've not heard. Well, obviously I've heard of NBA 2K2, but I've not played any of the games in the $2 tier. I'm not familiar with any of those games. Space Channel 5 sounds like a TV channel.
Yeah,
like
Space Channel
Newground.
5 is one of those games that people bring out when they talk about how unusual and revolutionary the Dreamcast was, because it's basically, I'm just pulling it up here because I never played it back in the day, but it's you work for a news channel. You're like a news channel girl in a kind of weird science fiction future, but like it's like a 1960s, it's like retro futuristic setting where you there's some sort of alien invasion, and you report on the invasion whilst fighting off the aliens. It's just weird.
You know what? That might be going in my basket.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I mean, honestly, all of these are a bargain.
Oh, absolutely. If I could get Sonic Adventure 2 for $5, I would buy 25 copies.
Yeah.
I think as a big wrestling fan, I'm going to get Royal Rumble. I have not played that game. It could be one of the worst games of all time. I'm going to buy it. So that makes up my list, including Space Channel 5. I think that's 23.
That's a good list. I mean, there is no bad list, right, that could be made from these. I can't think of a single game on here, except maybe NBA 2K2 that I just wouldn't be interested in. That's just because I'm not... Do you know what? I'd probably have fun playing it. I don't know. I'm not bothered about basketball, but it can't possibly be as bad as half of the slop that's released today.
I don't know if you played any of the old football games, but a lot of them had a lot of personality.
Yeah, I still go back and play a lot of old football games. I loved the Actua Soccer series, and the early FIFAs on the Mega Drive are still a lot of fun. But Virtua Striker is a game that I still play regularly. Like I've got a Steam Deck now, but up until fairly recently, before I got that, I had a Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, which is basically, it's a handheld gaming machine, but it's essentially a big Android phone in a shell that's got like some sticks and buttons on it that done up like basically a little SNES controller type thing. And I just it had a great battery, and I just loaded it up with emulators and ROMs. And I had like a rotation of games that I would play regularly when on flights, because I spend a lot of time on flights. And in there was Virtua Striker on the Dreamcast. I just play it for hours and hours, just playing over and over again the tournament mode on it, because it's just so like, it's a lot of fun and it's simple, but it's also hard as balls because it's designed to make you lose all your money in an arcade, right? So you can just hammer away at it over and over again. And just, have a really hard time, but by the end of the flight, you're winning the World Cup on it. I love the old footy games.
Oh, sick! I was just thinking when I saw virtual tennis, if there was a virtual soccer, that would be so fun. And then, Virtua Striker is
yeah, Virtua Striker is great. And if you the earlier versions of it, if you complete the entirety, like it's done up like a tournament, like I think a 32 team or 16 team bracket. You pick a country and you go all the way through to the final. But if you can get all the way to the final, winning every match without ever having to go to extra time or penalties, there's a secret match at the end against FC Sega where you play against a football team that's just models of all the guys that developed the game at Sega. And that's like
so
the
cool.
hardest match you can play. Yeah, it's really good.
But I don't know why. I thought you were going to say it was a team full of like popular Sega IPs. So like you'd see.
Oh, that would be cool. Yeah.
That would be wild.
Yeah, that would be mad. Sonic would have to be like unfairly fast, right? You could just like sprint past your defenders with ease.
So if you're watching or listening, why don't you make your own $23 budget? Leave a comment, let us know. We'll compare your baskets with ours. But that will call an end to this episode, sadly, because I do actually feel like I could talk about Sega and Dreamcast for hours, especially with you, Ben. But thank you for gracing us once again with your presence. Hopefully we can get you on the podcast again. And I do want to say, I do hope that you go ahead with that gaming podcast that you've mentioned sparingly during the Blood on the Clocktower streams. As I think you've got a great voice for podcasting, and you have a unique and genuine passion for video games, particularly classic ones. So I do think if you did it, it would go really, really well.
Oh, thank you. I will certainly keep that in mind. It's been kind of on my bucket list for a while. It's something that I really want to do, but someday, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But in the meantime, you're a very busy man with the Pandemonium Institute. You're pretty much going on tour at this point. What's next in the life of Ben Burns and the Pandemonium?
Wow, let me pull up my calendar. I'm off to Clocktower Con Vegas next week, which is happening next weekend in Vegas. You'll be shocked to learn. Then the weekend after that, so the first weekend in November, I'll be at Clockers Con in London with John Gracie. The weekend after that, so 7th, 8th, 9th, I'm at Clocktower Con Germany in Frankfurt, so you can catch me there. And then the weekend after that, the 14th to 16th of November, I'm at Ravenfest in Worthing, which is a brand new convention being run by some Clocktower fans. It's cheap and cheerful and well worth checking out if you're looking for a less expensive weekend away. So yeah, got a bunch of weekends at Clocktower coming up. Come play some games with me.
Perfect. And if for whatever reason people can't make those conventions, where can people watch online versions of Blood on the Clocktower?
Yes. If you want to come see some live Blood on the Clocktower, head over to twitch.tv/The Pandemonium Institute. That's twitch.tv/The Pandemonium Institute. Have fun spelling that. That's where we play live. And of course, if you don't want to come watch us play live, if you just want to watch videos, I run the official Blood on the Clocktower YouTube channel. It's called Blood on the Clocktower. You can find it. And yeah, we upload it every week on there on a Monday. So come check it out.
Perfect. Yes, once again, thank you, Ben, for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great chat.
Thank you very much. Yes, and whilst you're done, when you're done supporting Ben Burns and the Pandemonium Institute, following, subscribing to the Blood on the Clocktower, make sure you support the Streamcast. If you're watching us live on YouTube, give us a thumbs up because that helps us out greatly. Subscribe because that costs you nothing. And you'll be able to catch the replay of this podcast wherever you get your pods. So make sure to show support, whether that be on Spotify or Apple. Leave a comment. We also stream on Twitch, twitch.tv/Streamcast TV. I'm currently obsessed with Ghost of Yotei. It might be my game of the year. I am a bit of a masochist, so I'm playing on lethal mode. So, think Sekiro, think 600 attempts, but we're getting through it. I'm also going back in time, playing retro games. I'm currently hooked on my PS2. I'm currently streaming Simpsons Hit and Run, and I'm really enjoying the game, even though it's janky as all hell. I don't remember it being that janky in 2003, but you can join me on my personal channel, youtube.com/@the All the links will be in the description, but you can come through, enjoy some video gaming and sweary content. The next podcast will be the 28th of October. I believe that's a Tuesday because that's the day I leave my the day after I leave my toxic ass job, and I will be interviewing David, who is a regular at the Streamcast Club games nights. And what is the Streamcast Club, if you ask? It's an evening we hold the first Thursday of each month that people can let their hair down. Let us be your third place. Play through classic games such as Street Fighter 2, or we play through some modern games. Interviewing David, who's been a regular on the okay. I'm super sorry about that. The internet literally just crashed out.
Well, if it was going to crash out at any time, it might as well be right at the end. Right?
At the end, right at the end. So I'll just quickly round up. The next podcast will be on Tuesday, the 28th of October, where I'll be interviewing David about his video game, which is a mobile game. I've not had the opportunity to interview a mobile game dev, so I'm looking forward to that. So make sure you come through to that 7:30 p.m. UK time. But until then, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Stay safe. We'll see you on the next Streamcast.